Okay, so can lifting weights actually make your brain younger? I know it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But some really compelling new research suggests it might be a lot closer to fact than you'd think. Today, we are going to dig into this idea. Can you really turn back your brain's clock just by hitting the gym?
I mean, really think about that for a second. We all kind of accept that our bodies age. That's just part of life. But what about our brains? Is that decline just inevitable? Or, and this is the big question, could we actually have the power to not just slow down that clock, but maybe even wind it backwards?
Well, a groundbreaking study published in the journal Geroscience suggests the answer to that is a pretty resounding yes. It looks like we might have way more control over our brain's aging process than we ever imagined. So let's dive in and see exactly how they figure this out. Okay, but before we jump right into the weightlifting part, there's a really key idea we need to get our heads around. See, when most of us talk about aging, we're talking about our chronological age, the number of candles on your birthday cake. But neuroscientists, they're looking at something totally different, a metric that tells a much deeper story. And that metric is called brain age. So what is it? Basically, it's a calculation that's based on data from brain scans, specifically something called a functional MRI. It estimates the biological health of your brain. So you could be, say, 60 years old chronologically, but your brain age could actually be 55 or even 65. It's a really powerful biomarker for how your brain is really doing. I love this analogy because it breaks it down perfectly. Think of it like this. Your chronological age is the year your car was made. It's fixed, you can't change it. But your brain age? That's like the real mileage on the engine. It reflects all the wear and tear and how well you've maintained it. And here's the kicker. Unlike that model year, this study is asking, can you actually roll that mileage back? So how on earth do you even begin to prove something like that? Well, you have to design a really serious long-term experiment. And that is exactly what a group of researchers did in a trial called the Live Active Successful Aging Study. They decided to put the power of resistance training to the ultimate test, right up against this idea of brain age. So here's the basic blueprint. They got together 309 older adults. They used that powerful imaging technique we mentioned, resting state fMRI, to really look at the brain's network connectivity. And they had one super clear goal. Could hitting the weights actually change the brain's biological clock? Now, to get results you can actually trust, you can't just have everybody lift weights and call it a day, right? You need control groups, and you need to look at this over a long period of time. So these researchers designed a really meticulous 2-year trial, specifically to isolate the true impact of the exercise. Here's how they did it. The participants were all randomly split into 3 different groups. You had one group doing heavy resistance training. A second group was doing more moderate intensity training. And then you had the all-important third group, the control group. They didn't do any prescribed exercise. And that setup is what lets you really zero in on the effect of the exercise itself. And listen, this wasn't just some quick one-off check-in. They took brain scans right at the very beginning to get a baseline for everyone. Then they scanned them again after 1 year, and then they did a final scan and comparison after 2 full years. It's this long-term tracking that makes the results so incredibly compelling. All right, so this is the moment we've all been waiting for. After 2 years of dedication from all these participants, what did the brain scans actually show? Well, let's just say the results were even more significant than anyone could have hoped for. Here it is. This is the headline number. After 2 years, the people in the resistance exercise groups saw their brain age go down by up to 2.3 years compared to the group that didn't exercise. Just let that sink in for a minute. They didn't just slow down the aging process. The biomarker indicates that their brains actually got younger. And this effect wasn't just some small isolated thing. It worked for both the moderate and the heavy training groups. And crucially, this wasn't just a change in the part of the brain that controls movement, which you might expect. No, the positive changes were seen globally across the whole brain. That suggests a really fundamental improvement in how the entire brain network communicates with itself. Okay, wow. So what do we do with this incredible information? What are the real-world takeaways here? Let's bring this back down to what it means for you, for me, for anyone who's interested in their long-term health. The authors of the studies spell it out pretty clearly themselves. This isn't just some fun little fact, it's clinically relevant. What this means is that for doctors, for healthcare providers, this study gives them really strong evidence to recommend resistance exercise
as a proactive, preventative strategy to protect our brain health as we get older. But, of course, good science always acknowledges its limits. So let's be clear. On the one hand, the finding is huge. Resistance exercise can reduce a key biomarker of brain aging. That's amazing. On the other hand, we have to remember that this study measured that biomarker, not things like memory or cognition scores directly. Also, since all the participants were older adults, we still need more research to see if the same thing holds true for younger people. Ultimately, what this research does is open up a really powerful new way of thinking about how we take care of our brains. It's not just about doing crossword puzzles or reading books, as important as those things are. It's also about physical strength. So it leaves us with this really provocative and honestly empowering question. Knowing all of this, what's one thing you can do for your future brain starting today?